You will never experience your own death. Not because of medicine, not because of luck, because it might be physically impossible. Sit with that for a second. Not impossible like winning the lottery twice. Impossible like a square circle. Impossible like the question itself doesn't make sense once you really look at it. Here's the disturbing part. You've already proven this, every single night, without realizing it. When you fall asleep, consciousness stops. There's no experience of nothingness. No black void you remember floating in. No sense of time passing. One moment you're awake, and the next, you're somewhere else entirely, or nowhere. And then you're awake again. You never experienced the gap. You skipped it completely. Now ask yourself something you've never actually asked before. What if death works exactly the same way? Not metaphorically, literally. Because here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Nobody has ever reported experiencing their own death. Not one person in all of recorded history. Near-death experiences are not death experiences. The people who report them survived. Their brains kept functioning, even as everything was shutting down. What they experienced was the edge, not the other side. Nobody has ever come back from the actual other side to tell you what it's like, because if death is truly the end of consciousness, there is no you left to experience it, remember it, or report it. Which means from the inside, your own death might not even register as an event. Let that sink in for a moment. Now here's where it gets stranger. Physicist Max Tegmark and others have explored an idea in quantum mechanics called quantum immortality. It comes from a deeply controversial interpretation of quantum physics, where every possible outcome of every event actually happens, just in different branches of reality. If this interpretation is correct, then in any situation where there's even a tiny chance you survive, there exists a version of the timeline where you do survive. And from your subjective point of view, that's the only version you would ever consciously experience. In other words, you would never experience the branch where you die. Your consciousness would always continue in whichever branch you survived in, no matter how statistically unlikely that branch became. This isn't proven. Most physicists view it as a fascinating but unconfirmed interpretation. But if it's even partially true, it means something genuinely disturbing. From your own perspective, you might always end up in the branch where you keep existing, indefinitely, by sheer necessity of what consciousness even is. You wouldn't feel immortal. You just would never experience being anything else. Now combine that with something even stranger, the hard problem of consciousness. Neuroscientists can map every neuron firing in your brain. They can predict your behavior, your decisions, even your emotions with shocking accuracy. But nobody, not a single scientist on Earth, can explain why any of that produces the actual experience of being you. Why there's something it feels like to see the color red, to feel pain, to exist as a perspective inside a universe of matter. This gap is called the hard problem of consciousness, and it remains completely unsolved, which means we don't actually know what consciousness is, where it comes from, or most importantly, where it goes. So if we don't know what consciousness fundamentally is, how can we be so certain it simply switches off? Here's a question almost nobody asks. What if consciousness isn't produced by your brain at all? What if your brain is more like a receiver, tuning into something larger, the way a radio receives a signal without creating the music itself? If that were true, destroying the radio wouldn't destroy the music. It would just end your ability to access it through that particular device. This idea isn't new. It's been proposed by philosophers and some scientists studying consciousness under what's sometimes called the filter theory of mind. It's controversial, far from proven, and most neuroscientists disagree with it. But here's why it refuses to die as an idea. Nobody has been able to fully explain consciousness using only physical brain activity. Something is still missing, and if something is missing, that gap is exactly where the unsettling possibilities live. Now here's the twist that makes this even stranger. Time, as you experience it, might not work the way you assume. Some interpretations of physics suggest that all moments, past, present, and future, exist permanently within a structure rather than being created and destroyed sequentially. If that's true, then every moment you've ever experienced, including this one, doesn't disappear when it's over. It simply stops being the moment you're currently aware of, which means the version of you reading this sentence right now never stops existing in that exact moment. It's not lost. It's not gone. You just stop being conscious of being there, the same way you're not currently conscious of being 5 years old, even though that version of you happened, completed, and still holds its place. If this is true, then maybe death isn't deletion. Maybe it's just the end of your awareness moving forward through new moments, while every moment you ever lived remains exactly where it always was. You wouldn't be erased, you'd simply stop adding new pages, while the book itself stays intact forever. This still doesn't mean you're immortal in any comforting sense. You wouldn't necessarily experience more, but it raises a question that's almost impossible to shake once you really consider it. If nothing is ever truly deleted, what does dying actually mean? Is it an ending? Or is it simply the last new moment, followed by nothing new ever being added again, while everything you already were remains? Maybe death isn't something that happens to you. Maybe it's something that happens to time, while you stay exactly where you always were. So here's the question I want you to sit with after this video ends. If you will never experience non-existence, were you ever truly going to die at all? Or have you simply never been able to notice the moments when you didn't exist, the same way you've never noticed the nights you slept through without dreaming? What if the only thing that ends is your awareness of new time, while you, in every moment you ever lived, simply remain? So, what do you think? Leave your theory below. Subscribe for more impossible questions.